Thanks for checking out the Ideal Impact Podcast, where we discuss 5 key skills and the impact they can have on your life, as well as some major issues in society. You ready to get after it? Hey everybody, so before we get into the show, I have a question for you. I want to know who out there wants to unlock their true potential and transform their life on an extraordinary level. So there's no secret formula out there. Results come from long-term consistency, which is built through discipline. So do me a favor and take a moment to imagine what you could accomplish simply by taking consistent action towards your goals. For you, maybe that's crushing 3 workouts week in and week out, or maybe it's increasing your income by making 100 sales calls every week, no matter what. Or maybe it's simply sticking to a consistent schedule with your spouse to improve your marriage. So imagine what life could look like by building that relentless consistency. So here's the exciting news. Achieving this feat is 100% within your grasp, and we know this because we have done it. And we're here to empower you with the tools and guidance you need to cultivate relentless consistency and success in every aspect of your life. No longer will you face this journey alone, because we are in your corner, ready to support you every step of the way with 3 phenomenal options to kickstart your transformation. Option number 1, our monthly Ideal Connect calls. So these calls are extremely affordable, and they help inspire and equip you with the practical strategies that you need. As a bonus, all attendees receive Ideal merch that changes each month. So check out our YouTube channel to witness the transformative power of these calls for yourself. Option number 2, the Ideal Light Package. Perfect for those who already have a clear vision of the actions that they need to take, but maybe just require some external accountability to build that unwavering consistency. This option will help you stay on track and conquer your goals. Option number 3, this is the full-on Ideal Impact Coaching Package. Our comprehensive coaching is tailor-made for individuals seeking to discover their purpose, define their own success, and take on challenges to embark on a profound journey of personal growth and fulfillment. So if this got you fired up, go ahead and head over to idealimpactpodcast.com. Again, that's idealimpactpodcast.com and sign up for a free coaching consult to learn more about the transformative possibilities that await you. All right, that's enough for me. It's time to dive into the show and immerse yourself in the incredible insights and experiences of our host and guest. Let's get after it, everybody.
We're live.
It never gets old.
It doesn't get old.
I like it.
Good morning, everybody.
It is. It's better every time.
It's better when you're on the call and you get to experience it live. So this morning we have Brian Swick, as always. Kyle is actually flying home right now from Texas, so he is currently on a plane ride. And then our guest today is my friend Dan Claus. I don't think I've ever called you Dan in my life.
No,
it's Dano. It's always Dano.
That's what I've lived by for how many years? What, five years? College has always been Dano.
No one called you Dano in high school?
I bet you have. No,
what?
It was all Dano.
Where did Dano come from?
The very first. So I came on an overnight visit my senior year in high school, or that summer before, and remember, oh God, what was his name? One of the seniors, Joe Kraft. Remember him?
Yes.
He, as soon as he said my name, he just screamed out, "Book him, Dano!" That was it.
No shit.
And then they never knew my real name after that.
I mean, your real name's Dan. Just put an O on the end of it.
It is, it's easy nickname.
Yeah. That is easy. I didn't know the story behind that, so now I'm glad that I know it.
Yeah.
So the reason we have Dano on here today is because Dano there's a long list of things that Dano is. He's a teacher, a husband, a father, an athlete, a coach, an entrepreneur. Am I missing anything?
A stud.
A stud.
Yeah, it's about wrapped it up. Yeah.
You got a lot going on. Like
I do. So a lot of irons in the fire.
I don't think you mentioned that he was a collegiate athlete as well as a
I said he was an athlete. Well, yeah, he was a college wrestler and then MMA and now jiu-jitsu competitor.
That's right. Yeah.
I just think it's important for those viewers to know that the level that he was competing at, it takes a very extensive amount of discipline. So That's why I wanted to point that out, Daniel. You've worked hard and you deserve all that credit.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's been a lot of years. I mean, after that transition after college wrestling, went right into, I think it was my senior year. I was still wrestling at the time, but then I kind of transitioned into MMA and got hooked up with Dan the Beast Severin. And after that, man, that's when that journey began. And that was, God, 19 years ago.
Wow,
when that
we're
started.
old.
Crazy.
We're old. We're getting old.
Speaking of getting old, you get married and you have kids. I think we all, today is the day after Father's Day. I thought it'd be appropriate, instead of sharing our wins for the week, kind of like we normally do, since we all have that in common. Dan, we're going to start out and ask you, how was your Father's Day, man? What'd you do?
So too much, a low key day. Saturday was really busy. Because we have a coffee business as well, so we go to different festivals around the state, and we spent all day at the festival. So Sunday was our rest day. Got some pretty cool creative cards from the kids. So my 5-year-old is absolutely obsessed with making cards. Like, he steals all my printer paper all the time. It just draws everything, and so he gave me about 15 to 20 of those yesterday.
Wow, that's a lot of cards.
It's a lot of cards, man. He's maybe he's gonna be a writer, work for Hallmark someday.
Maybe.
Very thoughtful, intentional little boy there.
That's right. Yeah. No, we just kind of spent the day. My wife was sick, so I spent all day with the kids doing some house stuff, and I was able to get 9 holes in.
Nice.
Yesterday, brought the kids. So
did the kids golf, or they just watch you golf?
No, they go. My daughter loves golf. She's 11, so she's really getting into it. My 5-year-old Isaiah, he just likes swinging the club and whacking the ball.
What'd you shoot on 9?
It was not good. It was a 49. It's a 49. But if my goal is to hit the 40s, no matter what. I got to try to stay out of the 50s. That'll be an improvement for me.
49 is like would be my best score ever.
Yeah, that was a decent day. Yeah.
I'm not a golfer.
I like golf, but it's definitely not my thing.
You mentioned this coffee business, and you didn't even say the name of it.
We are called Sippity Split, and it is a mobile coffee concession. So we've got a coffee trailer, we've got espresso drinks. Yeah, and we've been operating for about 2 months now. It's been a 2-year process, like getting everything built and getting the trailer and all the machines, and now we're up and running and going to different festivals. We did a big festival in Coldwater, Michigan, the Strawberry Festival, which was crazy. It was all day. So it's busy. It's fun. But it's one of those things where we can bring the kids. Like, my son and I, walked around the festival, and he was able to play in the bounce houses. And my daughter's 11, so she loves to work it. She thinks that's the coolest thing in the world. So,
that's awesome. We'll dive more into that later about how that got started.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
What'd you say, Brian? Does she get paid?
I said, is she getting paid, Dan?
She is. Yeah, she's getting paid quite a bit.
That's good, man. The value of money and saving. That's awesome.
She has to brag to her friends that she has a job. Yeah.
There are labor laws out there, child labor laws. So make sure you
not if it's your own, kid.
Gonna say, it doesn't apply when it's your own, brother.
No, it doesn't. Yeah, it was a good Father's Day. It was good. It's always relaxing. John,
How about you, Randy?
I'm not. Oh yeah, go ahead, Randy.
Oh, what were you gonna say?
I'm just gonna keep rattling on, so you guys are gonna have to tell me to shut up once in a while.
All right, shut up, Dan. I'm gonna go ahead and talk about my Father's Day now.
Yeah, do it.
My Father's Day started with I got some cards as well, but I didn't get 15 to 20. I got 2, and I got breakfast. They made me some eggs and bacon and some toast, so that was pretty tasty. I actually slept in, which I don't normally do. I slept till 8 o'clock, and I can't tell you the last time I slept till 8 a.m. It just doesn't happen. What else did we do? For Father's Day, I got an ice bath, it's called the Ice Pod. It was, I don't know, it's kind of like it's not inflatable, but it's kind of like those Intex pools where you put the poles in and the things just stand up. Mm-hmm. So I got that. And then we went hiking at a place called Holden Arboretum, where we spent about 2 hours there. They have like this 200-foot tower we climbed up, and then they have these bridges that you can walk on, the canopy bridges. So that was pretty cool. And then we ended with dinner at Oaks and Ember, which is it's at a bourbon place. So I had a root beer float bourbon. It was awesome. It was delicious. And then I watched Extraction 2 to end my evening.
I'm not familiar. Tell me about that.
It's what's his name? Thor. What's Thor's?
Hemsworth? Is that Chris Hemsworth?
Yeah, Chris Hemsworth.
Yeah.
It's a Netflix movie. He was obviously there's an Extraction 1, and I've seen that one. It was pretty good, so I figured might as well watch Extraction 2. And yeah, it wasn't bad. It's no Thor, but it was good.
Well,
yeah. What about you, Brian?
It's a great day. You know, my boy's mother and I are on a schedule where I got them back early Sunday morning, which was nice. I was met with some cards also. My 6-year-old Justice is like Isaiah, where he made about 4 or 5 cards for me, which was pretty sweet. After that, just the 2 boys and I, we loaded up the truck and trailer and took the ATVs out to an ATV ride park. First time to that location. It was a successful trip, if you will. It's not successful unless you have a crash or an injury or something like that. So within about 30 minutes or so, my youngest son managed to crash his 4-wheeler, flip off of it into a river, into the water. But he popped up like a little stud, and we wanted to keep riding, but he broke it. So he rode with me the rest of the day. After that, I got to have dinner with my father and my mother and my brother and my boys, which was nice. So just some good quality family time. Speaking of my father, today is actually his birthday, so I wanted to shout out happy birthday, Pops. I love you. I hope you have a great day.
Happy birthday, Mr. Swick.
Awesome.
Yeah, all in all, it was a great day, man. Couldn't be happier. It was the best Father's Day I've ever had, to be honest. It was awesome.
That's awesome. And you get to spend money on fixing that 4-wheeler now.
I just so happen to work at a place that does that, so it won't cost me nearly as much as a regular consumer, but yeah, it still costs something.
Did you get that? Did you get that on video at least? It sounds like that'd be a pretty good video of that.
I did not. I got his brother riding in the same area, coming down the hills through the creek and up the other side, but I was a little nervous about Easton doing it, and therefore was really kind of paying attention for good reason.
Well, tell everyone how old Easton is.
So Easton is 3. Easton is 3 years old. His brother is 6, and they've been riding. Both of them started riding when they're about 2. So they both ride and operate their own machines. But he's my little Wreck-It Ralph, man. He's got no fear and breaks everything and anything. So at 3 years old, I was proud of him because he stood right back up. He got right back on the machine. Unfortunately, it was broke, so he couldn't ride it. But tough little guy.
That's awesome.
It's crazy how like boys that age. I have a girl and a boy, and when my daughter was younger, she was extremely cautious. She would sit back and like just watch the situation, think about it, and analyze it. But the boys, they don't care, man. There's no fear. It just doesn't register in their brain. It's like I see a gigantic rock, I'm gonna climb it and jump off it. Like there's no like why wouldn't I do that?
I will tell you it's different between my 2. My older son is the more conservative, is the safe type of little boy. The other one now, he's that kid doing backflips off the rock. He doesn't care.
I don't know anything about boys because I only have girls, but I can tell you that my oldest is like your oldest, Dano. She analyzes everything, very cautious. My youngest is insane and just does dumb stuff all the time. Does not think, does not care. She just like right now, she probably has like 25 bruises all over her body because she's always doing crazy stuff.
Not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing.
No, it's a good way for a kid to grow up, really. I mean, they learn their limits, they learn what's safe, what's not safe, and it gives them better judgment in the future, I think. But
sometimes they learn hard lessons.
Absolutely.
Yeah, sometimes those are the best.
Last year we were on vacation in North Carolina, and Hannah's my youngest, and she had been taking swim lessons, but still was not like the greatest swimmer. And she was just like, I'm just didn't ask, didn't say a word. She just jumped in the deep end of the pool. And yeah, we had to go in and get her because it didn't go well. And I was like, what are you doing? Oh, I thought I could do it. It's like, all right, well, let's think this through a little more next time.
She gets her swimming abilities from you, Randy. There's no doubt.
I say I'm a sinker, not a swimmer.
Dan, you said something a minute ago about, learning lessons. Throughout life, we learn lots of lessons, even, from young adolescence all the way up to adulthood. Give us a little bit of your background. Tell us, where you're born, where you're raised, growing up as a child to a young adult, young adult. What's your story, man?
Yeah. So, grew up in a little town called Jonesville, Michigan, another little rural farm town. I was there from all through school, all through, preschool, kindergarten, high school. Really big into athletics. My dad was my varsity wrestling coach. And so I gravitated toward that at a really early age. And I did the football thing and I did the cross country thing, and the wrestling was the go-to. So yeah, and I got an older brother who was really big. He was the better wrestler of the two. So I got a chance to, follow in his footsteps. Younger sister, she was the intellect of the family. She was really smart, did really well. So my brother and I, just through school, we did just enough so we could compete. That was it. We just wanted to get good enough grades so we can be on the wrestling team.
What GPA did you have to rock to do that?
Oh, I ended up, I was an okay student. I was in the 3 point around there.
Oh, that's good.
Maybe. Yeah, it was good.
So you didn't do just enough. I mean, you were above average academically.
I had a really lot of smart friends that, one of our routines in school was to meet in a certain place where we would just kind of pass around homework. So whoever had it done, we get it passed around. So I learned how to cheat my way through, especially math. Yeah. But it was survival, man. I had to do that. That's what it takes.
Well, nowadays they don't even have too much homework. So
no, that's changed a bit. Yeah. I wish they would have started that earlier.
Right. Then you wouldn't have to worry about it.
Yeah. No, from there, went on to Heidelberg College at the time, Heidelberg University now.
Student Princes.
Wrestling. Student Princes, yeah. They're still holding on to that wonderful mascot. But no, I had some success in high school wrestling. I was an all-state junior year. Did really well my senior year. Just, it was one of those things that it was kind of cut short with a tough loss at regionals. But yeah, that kind of projected my future into college wrestling, and went on to Heidelberg, and did okay there. Went through college. After Heidelberg College, I went on to pursue a special education degree. So at Heidelberg, I got a history degree and I got some credits in education. I started the education program, didn't really pan out, wasn't really interested that much. So I ended with a history degree. But then, I got a lot of family members who are in that area, that field. So I kind of got back on track with the education and ended up enrolling in Spring Arbor University, where I got my special education degree, and pursued that career.
So was that a degree program, or was that like just a licensure? Or did you get your master's with that?
It was they considered it postgraduate. So it was a postgraduate degree, and I ended up finishing. I had like a minor in history, and then I got a minor in history education because I just needed a few more credits for that. But no, I wanted to get into special education because I was a little bit more interested in dealing with the smaller groups and actually dealing with the more difficult kids. I was not excited about having a classroom full of 25, 30 kids. So I kind of went a different route into the special education.
Well, yeah, I want to back it up real quick, and I got to know, what made you choose Heidelberg?
So my first visit was actually Baldwin Wallace, which is in the same Ohio Athletic Conference. Did a visit there. Didn't really like it. I mean, it was an awesome campus. The wrestling team was pretty good. I don't know. It just wasn't a real friendly environment. So then after that, I got set up with an overnight stay at Heidelberg. And at that overnight, I'm like, yeah, this is it. We ended up going to the it was the X's. Remember the X's? That
I remember that fraternity.
Quite well. Yeah. And they had a big party that night. So I got hooked up with Chris Phillips and great mentor, by the way, especially on an overnight. Had a ton of fun. Everyone was just, very welcoming. Like it wasn't weird. It wasn't awkward. And that was it. And then I got to talk with Jason Miller. He sold on it. He was a good talker and good motivator. So that was it. Yeah.
No looks in Michigan? You didn't go and visit any Michigan schools?
No, I had some interest in Olivet College, but that was my dad's alma mater. So I kind of talked to my dad about it, and he wasn't encouraging Olivet. He was kind of encouraging me to go on my own because he did really well at Olivet, so his name was still known. And he kind of encouraged me to go out, make my own name, because he didn't want me to be Tom Claus's son,
Right.
So he kind of steered me in the right direction. I'm glad he did. I had some pretty good memories at Heidelberg.
It was a good time, that's for sure.
That was a good time. Yeah.
I enjoyed it myself. Yeah. Your brother wrestled in college, correct?
He did. He was Mount Union, which is the same conference.
Right.
Yeah.
What weight was he?
He was 133 and 141.
So he was smaller.
Yeah. Yep. He was small. He cut a lot of weight. And he did well. I mean, he was definitely the better wrestler. Did
you ever consider Mount because your brother was there?
I did, but it was kind of the same thing as my dad said. You got to go off and create your own name, create your own stories. Instead of being, my brother's name is Eric. Instead of being Eric's brother, I went to Heidelberg and became Dano.
Became Dano.
Yeah. It's able to create my own image.
Yeah. And it's stuck.
Which can be good and bad, but
that's true.
I think I did pretty well.
So what about wrestling? Like what made you, because you said you played football and you did cross country, but what was it about wrestling that sparked your interest?
Well, my dad was a longtime coach, so I was born into it. That was our family dynamic was wrestling. And even I started competing in third grade. We had some, Jonesville tournaments and youth tournaments. But before that, I was running around, being a manager at every practice. So it was I was born into it. And, and it wasn't really pushed. It wasn't like I was forced into wrestling because my dad was a longtime wrestler. It was just, I got hooked at a really early age and ended up picking up. I did pretty well as a youth, did really well in middle school and had some success in high school. So, yeah.
And that's a tough ass sport.
It is. It's really tough. I still believe, even after doing, a really long career in MMA and jiu-jitsu, I still consider wrestling it is the toughest sport, bar none. It requires the most dedication. It requires the most. It's just, just physically and mentally takes you to the extreme limit every day. In jiu-jitsu, you got days where it's, you're not really pushing hard. It's you kind of just flow in and drilling but wrestling, it was just constant, just pounding and pounding and pounding. And in a crazy way, that's what I liked. Like that's what kind of pulled me into that combat type sport. And I did the football thing. And I was tiny in high school. I wrestled, I think freshman year, I hit my highest weight was like 85 pounds. So
yeah, that's little.
When you put an 85 pounder on a football field, I looked ridiculous because, they couldn't find a pair of pads and I didn't want to wear youth pads. So, but I did football just because, my friends were doing it. That was the popular thing to do. And, small town communities, football's everything. But yeah, you know, but again, I wasn't passionate about the sport, but I had a lot of friends that played, and, you know, good experience. Cross country was another one. I completely despised cross country. I hated it. I still do not like running today. I know that it's probably going to offend you, Randy, but
it's not going to offend me at all because I hate running. I just do it because I do it because I hate it.
Yeah.
That's why I do it.
I say it's a shame Dan's not, or Kyle's not here, because I'm sure he would sit there right there with you and be like, dude, I hated it too.
Oh yeah, it's miserable.
You know, and it's nothing fun.
No, and it is one of those needed things just for overall health and wellness. Like, just running is good. So that's why I continue to do it. But yeah, it's brutal.
I just like the mental aspect of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I still consider, you know, and I've done a lot of sports, and I've done just about every combat sport, and I have more respect for those marathon runners and those ultra marathon runners that they're absolutely insane. Like, that's a next level mentality that I have so much respect for.
Yeah, I did the marathon, but you're not going to catch me. I'll never do it again, and I'm not going beyond the mileage of a marathon. I'm not trying to do what Goggins does and go out there and run 200 miles at once. That's insane.
Yeah. I don't even think he's human.
No, I don't think so either. That's crazy to me. Like, the marathon sucked. I did not enjoy it. There was not one time during that where I was like, this is a good time.
Why don't I do this more often?
It was 4.5 hours of just miserable and suck. I liked it at first, but towards the end, I was like, I just want this to be over with, because I was not having fun anymore.
Yeah, you know, I've considered doing that, because it's one of those. It's kind of taken a Dan Gable mindset. I remember reading his book, that he always had the goal of pushing himself. He wanted to see how far he could take himself. And that's how he trained, like, constantly. Like, I want to take myself to the brink of death just to see what I'm capable of. And I kind of feel like that's what that ultra marathon running and that marathon running does. Like, it takes you that next level of pain and just, you know, physical and mental exertion. So,
Dan, what's the name of that book?
Dan Gable's. Oh, I'm
I have the same book upstairs in my room. He's
got 2 of them now. He wrote a second one.
I think it's just Dan Gable, like A Wrestling Life or something. If only we had this kind of technology where we could look this stuff up.
I think you're right.
I think it's A Wrestling Life. I didn't mean to put you on the spot, but you just said something about the book that, you know, it pushed him to his limits. I just watched a Netflix series on the Tour de France. And if you guys haven't seen that, you know, you talk about pushing yourself to watch these dudes ride for, 20-some days straight, 21 days straight.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It is absolutely incredible to see these guys push themselves to that point. I asked about Dan Gable's book, the name of it, because I would like to read it.
It's A Wrestling Life.
A Wrestling Life?
Yeah, I have it. I'll let you borrow it.
I'll have to read it.
It's a good one. Definitely gets in the mind of that man, and he's something else. He's someone I've looked up to for years, just because he's got that mindset. Like, you know, and even Goggins, you know, I read his book, and he talks about there's a certain threshold that most people just don't take themselves to, and then once you hit that threshold, and your body's about to fall apart, but then if you're able to go past that point, it eliminates pain. It's almost like that runner's high. That's what they call it. Like, it hurts so much until you get past that point, and then it's like, then there's no pain at all. So that's why I respect Goggins so much, and that's why I respect, you know, marathon runners and ultra marathon runners, and so might be my future. I don't know. I'm not in a hurry to do it.
What's the furthest you've run so far?
I've done 8 miles. Done 8 miles. That was a few years ago.
All right.
No, my run, like this morning, I got a 3-mile run in, and that's enough for me. Like, you know, 3 miles is good. But that's usually, So yeah, the workout I had this morning was 3-mile run, and then I did a little short circuit after that. But yeah.
Nice. I got a little 3-mile ruck in this morning.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
Gives the knees and hips a little break.
Yeah. Did you jump in that ice bath after
I
that?
I will tonight. I will probably wait till the end of the day. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I did it last night and it was cold. Turns out ice baths are cold.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah.
It's wild.
Yeah.
So Dan, after college, after the, collegiate wrestling career, where did it take you? We talked a little bit about the upbringing into college. What happened for you after college? What's the rest of your story?
So after Heidelberg, went to the Spring Arbor, and during Heidelberg, that senior year of wrestling, with wrestling in college, to me, it was kind of it was an unfulfilling experience. So, and that's always it's always been in the back of my mind. Like, it was just, I was not satisfied with the way college wrestling went. I mean, I improved tremendously, got a lot of matches, and I did well, but for me, it just was not where, when I started college wrestling, I had a vision of where I wanted to be at the end of college wrestling. And when you don't meet that, when that hits you at the end of that career, it's like, damn, I gotta do something. So that's kind of, yeah. And so that's kind of what led me into MMA. So it was kind of good and bad. At the end of it, I'm like, man, I'm not pleased with how I did. I'm unsatisfied. So MMA was the next best thing. And I got hooked up with Sever. And luckily he was 20 minutes down the road from me when I came back home and to my family home. And I started training with him. The summer of my sophomore year is when I started training at Dan Severin's gym. And, he kind of took me under his wing and he talked a lot about MMA and talked a lot about his career. And once I saw his MMA classes, I'm like, that's it. That's what I got to do. So it was almost the unfulfilling and unsatisfactory career in college wrestling is what kind of fueled my motivation to get into mixed martial arts. And yeah, that was like 18 years ago. So
yeah, I remember holding the mitts for you while you were hitting them and then doing jiu-jitsu with you. We had no idea what we were doing.
No, we didn't. We just, we were winging it. Yeah. Yeah. I actually
Randy,
took my first.
Do I remember you going to one of Dan's matches, one of Dan's fights?
I cornered him. I cornered him in a fight. I had no idea what I was doing.
He did. Yeah. Yeah. Let me share that story. So I get a fight. I don't remember where it was at.
It was in Ohio somewhere. Yeah. I don't remember where either.
So I call the guys up. I get it last minute. And that's one at an amateur MMA. You're like, I get an opportunity to fight like on a Thursday. Like, hey, can you drive down Friday and fight? I'm like, yeah. So none of my guys at the gym were available to travel with me. So I hit up Randy and Scott. I'm like, hey, you guys want to corner me? He's like, yeah, why not? So they're there. And it's I don't know. Did I win that fight?
I think it was a split decision.
I think it was a split decision. Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember in between. So I'm like coaching them how to corner as I'm like preparing to get into the cage. And after that first round, none of them come in the cage. They're sitting on the stool that I'm supposed to have in the cage. So they finally come in and Randy's like, I don't know what to do. I'm like, let's start with some water. Do you have any water? They're like, oh yeah. So they finally give me some water. It's like, a stool? Is there a stool? It's like, yeah, Scott's sitting on it. You want that? Like, Jesus Christ. So that was Randy's first corner experience.
So what you're saying is if they had given you some water, let you sit a little bit longer, maybe told you to pace yourself, you probably wouldn't have had a split decision. You probably would have won.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Probably would have.
Yeah.
Probably would have been a knockout. Yeah.
For sure. Way to take accountability there and blame the corner.
Yeah, Randy, you really set him up for failure. What the heck?
I mean, I didn't know anything about MMA at that point other than watching it. I just remember yelling, yeah, leg kick.
Yeah.
I had no idea what I was doing.
Punch him with your foot.
Punch him with your foot. I think the advice I gave you after round 1 was stop getting hit. Like, hey, he hit you a few times. You should stop doing that.
Yeah, don't do that. Yeah. No, it was good. That was a fun night.
Yeah. But you had success in MMA. I mean, you did it for how long?
I did. So, well, it's about 18 years now. It was about 5 years ago is when I got my pro debut out in California. And that was good. I won that one. Flew out to California with Severin. So that's kind of cool having him in my corner.
A little bit of an upgrade from Scott and myself to Severin.
Yeah, shockingly, I didn't have to remind him to give me some water.
Yeah, he probably knew what he was doing.
Yeah, but no, I've had success, but it's one of those things where kind of like college wrestling. It's and I'm guilty of this in almost every aspect of my life. Is I'm just never satisfied. So I'm currently 3-3 as a pro fighter, and to me, that's not enough. So I gotta keep pushing it.
So are you gonna fight more?
I'm considering it. I feel good. I'm 38, so I'm getting up there. So my MMA career is going to be coming to an end pretty soon.
I didn't think you were taking any more fights. I thought you've moved on. You're doing jiu-jitsu now, and because you've been doing really well with that. So I thought that was the main
I've
now.
had some success with that. But we actually had one of my good friends. He was a heavyweight pro fighter. He's back training with us. So we've been doing, and he's looking for some fights. So he and I have been going pretty hard with training, back to striking, and it's kind of reignited that interest. So I don't know. We'll see.
Interesting. It'd be like Couture fighting when you're 42 years old.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I'm going to be a 2-division champion at 42 like he was, but
it'd be cool if you were, though.
Yeah, it would be. It would be.
Well, Dan, with your mindset, you're like the perfect guest. I mean, you got that never say die, never quit attitude. So who knows? We might see you at 42.
Yeah, might, man. And it's kind of been a blessing and a curse, because it's, you've got to get to the point where you should be at least somewhat satisfied with what you've accomplished. And not to say I haven't. Like, I feel good about what I've done so far, but it's always like, what can I do more? Like, there's got to be something. There's got to be a next level. It's always like, there was I can't remember who, I can't quote the person who wrote this, but there was an analogy with mountain climbing. So you got that guy that trains forever, for years and years to climb this summit. And then he finally gets to the point, and it's brutal and it's taxing. And he finally gets to that top of that mountain, only to see a larger, taller summit beyond that. So then that becomes its next goal. And, then he climbs that one, and in the distance, there's a higher one and high. So I've kind of tried to follow that philosophy, but it gets tough sometimes, because you do need to reach a point where you look back and like, you know what, this could be good enough. I'm just not there yet.
So what do you do in these situations? Like, because I'm the same way. Like, I feel like I'm never content with what I'm doing. I always need to go accomplish something else, and there's always more. Yeah. And I have to be intentional and force myself to like celebrate small victories. Otherwise, I'll just pass it by and be like, all right, on to the next thing. So what do you do to help with that?
Winning competitions is good. And, it kind of helps with the people that I have surrounding me, like my teammates, my family, my kids. So when I do something good, like last year I won the Pan American Championship in no-gi. And when I came home, it was like, all right, now I gotta prepare for Worlds. So, and my wife made the comment like, well, aren't you happy with the Pan Ams? Like, yeah, I was happy. I was happy for about that long. And then once it was over, it's like, what's next? Like, now I need to be a world champion. And so it does help surrounding yourself with people that point that out. Because if it was just me on this journey alone, I wouldn't stop. And that's when it becomes a burden. So having people reminding you like, hey, you've, kind of take a second to look back at what you've done so far. And, it's okay to pat yourself on the back once in a while.
Agreed. I mean, Pan Am's is a pretty big deal.
Yeah, it was. And that was something I worked for, for a long time. I got a year before that, I got bronze. I got bronze in the Worlds, then I got bronze at Pan. So that was, that left kind of an empty feeling. So I kept chasing the gold, and I finally got it at Pan Americans. We got the World Championship coming up at the end of August. So I'll be preparing for that.
This is in jiu-jitsu, in case people have no idea what we're talking about.
Yeah, this is in jiu-jitsu. Yep. Yeah.
Dan,
So Pan American.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Brian. What was your question?
Dan, I was gonna ask you. You talk about this, and for a guy like you, it's seemingly like, I won this, and I'm gonna do that.
Yeah.
What type of discipline does this take for people listening? I mean, this is no small feat. To hear it coming from you, it kind of sounds like, I worked a little bit to do this, but tell these people what it took, the hours of training, the dieting, all this stuff that really comes down to your amount of discipline.
Yeah, so it's in order to do it, it has to become a lifestyle. Like, and you got to, it's a daily thing. And I'm not grinding every single day, because that's not, then you start getting negative effects. But it has to be something, whether it's just, I do a lot of meditation and mindfulness. And even if I take a day off of training, I still have to focus on training mentally. And it's got to be a lifestyle. It's got to be every single day. And diet is one of them too. Like that, to me, that's my weakness. So that's where I got to step up the discipline a little bit more extra, because that's on your own. With training, I've got a gym full of guys that go really hard. So I've got to meet that. I've got to rise up to their level of training. So it's a little bit easier for, having someone to push you. But when I come home and there's home cooked meals, there's a big bowl of pasta, and I gotta be able to figure out, like, okay, here's my goal. If I eat this, which I'm going to eat too much of it, because pasta is a huge weakness of mine. If I eat too much of it, that takes away everything that I did that day, and I don't like that. So that's kind of what that helps me kind of, eat a little bit healthier.
I mean, it sounds like you're being super intentional with the choices that you're making.
Yeah, it has to be, and I'm really big on writing things down. Once it's on paper, I feel like I have to hold myself a little bit more accountable. Having teammates help, because they kind of do the same thing. They're on the same path. We got some guys training for the World. We're going to have about 5 or 6 guys traveling out to Vegas.
Worlds are in Vegas.
Yep. So having them there to remind you that they're struggling with the same thing kind of makes you think, like, oh shit, like I'm not the only one. So having that accountability partners, it's really important.
I couldn't agree with you more, Dan, but I also want to say that you made mention of, you've got these guys at the gym that push you. Yeah. You also said before that, you got to remind yourself to accept these little wins and, give yourself some credit for it. You are the guy getting out of bed, going to get in your car to drive to that gym. I mean, that takes discipline in itself just to get yourself there. The guys aren't dragging your ass into the gym with them. You are the one taking that step. So I think it's important that you need to take a little bit more credit for that as well, because without you making that first step, the rest of it just doesn't happen. And I think a lot of our listeners might need to know that as well. It takes more than just saying, I have others to lean on. You're still making all that effort on your own too. Yep.
Yeah. And I'm really big on, because I'm one of the instructors at our jiu-jitsu gym now. So if I miss a day, that's, I've got 20 some guys that I'm disappointing, because they're making that trip, they're doing that discipline to make that trip to be taught by me. So if I don't make it, then that's letting a lot of people down. So that helps drive my discipline. And the other thing too, and you guys have mentioned this in other episodes, where like discipline is not, that discipline kicks in when the willpower is gone. Discipline kicks in when you are not, because there's a lot of days I don't want to train. Like there's a lot of days I do not want to make that drive, because it's 35 minutes to my gym. That's a long time. be like, man, I'm not feeling it today. So that's when the discipline kicks in. It's like, I have to, like, I need to win. Like, I have to go into competition knowing that I did not skip a beat at all. Because if I do, if I think back, like if I'm getting ready for a world competition, I think back like, man, I should have trained that day. Like that's gone. I'm not going to compete as well as I should.
Sure.
So that's, yeah.
I can understand that to a point. I'm not nearly the athlete that you were. At least I wasn't in combat sports, but I'm actually trying to train for a competition myself right now. And yesterday was extremely hard. Yesterday was hard because I was sitting here with my family trying to have dinner, and the Brian of old would sit down and smash 4 or 5 pieces of pizza along with 10 wings. So, yeah, I feel you, man.
Well, I'm the only loser not training for a competition right now.
Well, you also are on the verge of a hip surgery, and I'm not making excuses for you, but right now you are actually making a better decision to not be putting yourself through that, knowing that you've got an uphill battle with the recovery and stuff. So I applaud you for that.
Oh, thanks. So I feel like I should be training for something. You got bodybuilding competition, you got a dude training for worlds, and then I'm just eating pizza and wings, drinking bourbon yesterday. So
drinking bourbon. I enjoy bourbon once in a while. And that's, I also want to clarify, like, I don't want to paint a picture like I'm just, as disciplined as David Goggins. Like, there are days where, like, probably, when was it? It was a couple weeks ago. There's 3 or 4 days during the week where it's like, I'm not eating this, salad when I've got pizza sitting right next to me, because the kids eat pizza and I've got my salad. I'm like, nope, I'm eating pizza. So there's a lot of moments where it's, but to me, it's not, I'm not breaking down the discipline. It's just knowing that, I listen to my body a lot. And if I feel like I'm breaking myself down, I do kind of step back and relax a little bit. So I'll take days off of training. I'll eat some pizza. Food is my week. That's the toughest area of that whole training is food, man. Cause like tonight, my daughter's got a softball game tonight, and where does everybody go after baseball or softball games? They go eat some ice cream.
Right.
So, so I indulge quite often, but I'm careful with overdoing it. That's where it gets tricky, because a lot of guys, like a cheat day, and cheat days they're not bad. They're actually quite useful. This, physiological effects of a cheat day is not, it's actually pretty positive. But, when a cheat day on a Friday night carries over into a Saturday morning breakfast, and then you've got leftovers from Friday night, it's like, well, I might as well eat those, because, I don't want those to go to waste. But, so I have a lot of moments like that where it's kind of up and down, and that's the life of combat sports is, I talk to a lot of guys about the same thing. It's like they'll break down and stop and eat a donut. It's like, it's okay to do that. It really is. So, but people go wrong when that becomes habitual. Like if you're starting your morning out with a donut or just garbage. I was talking to one of my, it's a kid that just started training jiu-jitsu, and he was talking about, his diet. Like he's drinking pop, and he's eating fried foods, and, but then he wants to get better at jiu-jitsu. So it's like, hey, maybe you should focus on that. But yeah, and that's what people need to understand. They don't need to be psychotic like a David Goggins. You don't need to get to be at that level of discipline in order to accomplish whatever goal you have in place. You're going to have moments where you need to indulge, because there is a mental aspect where you could burn yourself out and be too disciplined, and you get burnt out, and then it doesn't become enjoyable. Then it's like, God, I fucking hate this. Like, I don't want to train. I don't want to do this. And then, it affects your mood, it affects your mentality. So
it becomes like a chore. When it becomes a chore, it's no longer fun.
Yep. So, you got to give yourself time to indulge. You got to, eat some cake once in a while. enjoy the Christmas dinners, enjoy the Thanksgiving dinners, and yeah, everything will be fine.
I find it very hard to believe that Goggins is hard 365 days out of a year, 24 hours, 24/7. There's no way the dude, like, that's his persona and that's what he's known for, but there's no way that he's not indulging every now and then. Otherwise, I mean, he wouldn't be able to keep doing what he's doing.
No, and I truly believe that you have to. Yeah, I think that's good, because you gotta, there's usually three aspects that we've always stuck with the team that I train with. It's, it's mentally, physically, and spiritually. So you've got to fit in some time in order to be strong in all those areas. You've got to indulge. You've got to break from that routine. The problem is breaking from that routine too long. If you've got a couple days, 2 to 3 days, like Christmas, holidays are a great example. It's, you got to be able to skip training days on those days and go to the family functions and eat the cheesecakes and eat all that fried foods. And you need to be able to do that for your own well-being.
And your family and your family's well-being.
Family. Yeah.
Like, dad's not going to Christmas today because he's going to go train jiu-jitsu. Well, no.
Yeah, that doesn't go over well.
It's not going to fly.
No. And I experienced that in high school. My junior and senior year of high school, where I went way too far. Those were the times where it was every day after practice, you put your plastics on, and you're starving yourself, and and as a high school kid, I was young and stupid. So I'm looking at all these old school wrestlers from way back, and that's what they were doing. And looking back on that, that's not a healthy way to do it. Like, yeah, I made the weight that I wanted to, but I had to drop 15 pounds to do it. And to maintain that weight, I was miserable.
Right.
In college wrestling was the same thing. There was a lot of times that you don't eat, you starve yourself, and you're miserable and you hate life. And, that's when you're crossing that line. So as I got older and as I got into mixed martial arts and jiu-jitsu, it became, because that's year round. Like, if you do that, if you're that disciplined and that strict year round, you're going to burn yourself out, and you're going to fall short of your goals because of that. So you can be proud of your discipline, but you can't, you got to be careful and not burn yourself out. So I agree with Randy. I think, there's going to be times where Goggins, maybe he's not posting them on Instagram, but I guarantee he's been to a buffet and just mowed down.
Well, yeah, if you're going to continue you said you've been doing this 18 years now. I mean, to have that type of consistency, you have to have balance.
Yeah. Yep, you do.
You're a brown belt right now, right?
Brown belt, yes.
How long did it take you to get that?
I've had that for a little bit over a year now. God, when did I start? So I've been 18 years in MMA, but I didn't do the first, I was completely against jiu-jitsu when I started, because I came out of wrestling, and the coach that I had at Severance, we did a lot of Muay Thai. That's where we started out, with Muay Thai kickboxing, and a couple of years into it, he showed up with these robes, these pajamas, and we're like, guys, we're gonna start training gi. And I remember putting it on and instantly feeling like, this is the dumbest. I feel so ridiculous. And then we started to go live, and it was super frustrating because I was a wrestler, and I wasn't able to shoot because this guy had a hold of like all these clothing. Like, dude, you can't grab clothes and wrestling. So I hated it right off the bat. And I actually stopped training the gi for about 2 to 3 years and continued competing in no gi, continued competing in MMA. But once I started fighting higher level guys, because there's a period where you get an offer to fight, and they send you information about your opponent. And at the end of my amateur career is when I was starting to fight like bigger shows, King of the Cage. And when I was looking at these guys, I noticed like they're all like blue belts or purple belts, and I fought a brown belt in jiu-jitsu, and they're all training in the gi. So I started thinking like, maybe there's something to this. Like, all these higher level guys are doing it. So I picked it back up, and from that point on, I approached it with a different mindset. And from there, it just kind of became an addiction. And it definitely helped. It definitely helped my MMA game, knowing the submissions and training in the gi but I had to change that mindset, man, from coming from strictly wrestling, because wrestling, I believe, is the greatest foundation of MMA. I still to this day. But if
look at all the champs. I mean, most of them have some type of wrestling pedigree.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. But you're limiting yourself if you don't do all of it. So you gotta put the gi on, you gotta train. So that, I had good coaches that, were kind of pushed me back into it. And and I've done pretty well since then,
I would say.
Yeah.
So
we still got a lot left.
Yeah. Go ahead, Brian.
So what happens after, obviously we've talked a lot about the college, the wrestling, the MMA.
Mm-hmm.
Today, you're a teacher, you're an entrepreneur, you're married, you have children. Tell us about, the love of your life, the kids, the stuff you do at school, as a teacher. What else do you do?
Yeah. So we'll start with family. So it's definitely, with everything I have going on, it's a balance. And that's what I've learned through a lot of struggle, having that many things, and I know, both you guys can attest to that, is, you want to be successful in all these different aspects in life. And that's, you want to conquer one thing and then move on to the next. But there are times where you get a little unbalanced and it affects the personal life. So I've made that switch. Probably the last 5 years, I'd say, is I've gotten better at making that switch and making my personal life priority. And my wife is, she's an absolutely saint. Like she is, she supports all the other things that I do, but she's also the one that keeps me grounded. She's the one that I'll come home after 5 days of training in a week, say, hey, how much time are you going to spend at home? And during that week, it's like, that just never registered. So I've got, my wife is amazing at doing that. And I need that, and having my kids there, and they definitely help motivate me to continue what I'm doing. But now that they're getting involved in things, like my daughter is real passionate about softball, and she played basketball, and I make it a point to be at those games. Like there's a lot of nights of training on the mats where it's like, I'm not going. My daughter, like tonight as an example, tonight's one of our gi training nights at our dojo, but my daughter has a game. So I have no problem skipping that training session tonight and watching her. So it's those things throughout that process that you've got to, and that's where that being intentional, like you have to make your personal life priority. And there was a lot of years I struggled with that. So I've got a pretty good wife that reminds me when I am struggling with that to get back on track, to get a little bit more grounded.
I mean, it's good that you have that person to call you out, but unless you actually listen to her and do something about it, I mean, it doesn't really mean anything. So we've had conversations in the past about this, and I know it was probably 5 years ago, you had a different mindset. So what switched for you? Like what made you, because back then you were like, I have to do this. I have to do this. I have to do this.
Yeah. Well, and I still have that mindset, but it's actually, during that time period is when I read David Goggins' first book. And I was listening to the audio version, and it was a pretty tough time of my life. Like just figuring out that balance, because I had the seal coating business. I was still teaching. I had I was pursuing that world championship with a little bit too aggressively. And then I had a family. So, and I remember part of that book where he mentions how he struggled with that. And it was affecting his marriage. So what he did is he basically took a look at his daily schedule, and the area that was getting in conflict with most of his personal stuff was his training in the evenings. So he made the switch to do it in the morning. And once I started to do that morning routine, it changed everything. So I'd get up super early in the morning, and I still do. I still follow that routine. I would still get a really good workout in and have that evening to just be home, be present. And that's basically all my wife requests is like, just, be present. So making that switch and just your schedule, you don't necessarily have to sacrifice things. There is some sacrifice, but it's more of a balance, and because I don't think I could give up jiu-jitsu. If I had to, I could. I mean, if it really came down to it, I could give up the business. I could give up jiu-jitsu. But you don't have to go that route initially. If you rethink your day, you can plan it a little bit better to where you're putting a little bit more time into the personal life. And that's what really got me hooked on David Goggins and it was cool because during that time I listened to that podcast or listened to that audio book. It was like, it really spoke to me because I was having that struggle. So yeah, and it's not to say it's perfect. I mean, there are a lot of weeks where it's like I get, unbalanced, and like this past week, it was a really successful week. I was able to build that behavior system, and I got 4 days of training on the mats. And we were still, doing some coffee events, and I'm still trying to run the seal coating business and contacting customers. And with all that being done and accomplished, I was still able to go to the softball games. We were still able to take some time, and we went out to eat last week, and it was good. So it was a good balanced week. But I've had a lot of weeks where it doesn't, and things slip, and so that's kind of it's up and down. Like it's kind of a roller coaster. So,
Randy,
yeah.
Did you catch him say, the educational piece there?
I did.
For the listeners that may have caught that, but pre-recording of the show, Dan and Randy and I talked a little bit about what he's doing currently at work. So we've talked about the family, we've talked about his wife, kids. Obviously, Daniel, you're a teacher, and you are tasked with something pretty big, which is a huge issue right now, and my opinion, at least, for school and probably some, student reform. What do you got going on there? What are you doing?
So for the last 15, 16 years, I've been in special education, and a lot of my area has been dealing with behavior issues. And I don't know why. They just kind of fell on me. My first job was I was in a classroom with a lot of emotionally impaired kids, which emotional impairment, for those who don't know what it is, it's kids that just they can't self-regulate. They can't self-manage, they can't self-regulate. They go from 0 to 100 like that. Like little things just set them off. I've worked with children with autism, same thing. They just, they don't understand a lot of the social norms, and so it causes a lot of frustration. So most of my career has been dealing with behaviors and behavior management. And when I got the job at my current district, again, I was the guy that was sent, all these kids that were having behavior issues. And for the past, I'd say 3 years at this district, we've been trying to implement a system. But we've never had someone in a position to run it and oversee it consistently. So my new position next year will be that person. So the title is behavior interventionist. And I will be working with kids kindergarten through 8th grade. And they are kids that struggle with behaviors. These are the kids that are kind of your repeat offenders who can't quite, cut it in the classroom for a variety of reasons. So I built a system to help teachers. It's basically a script, because a lot of teachers struggle with what to do, especially on the fly. They've got a kid disrupting the classroom. They need to teach. They need to teach the other 20 to 25 kids in that classroom and not waste time dealing with one kid. So I've created a system with the help of, and this is not 100% mine. There's a lot of districts in our area that have used similar systems. So I'm taking pieces from here and pieces from there and kind of modifying it to fit our district. And that's what I did last week. That was my big goal to get done last week. And we've got a pretty good idea of where we're going to head. But it's basically, to break it down, it's it's a tiered system. So we're using steps. So if student A is disruptive, if it's just minor, he's talking during class, and there is a designated and specific response from that teacher. So behavior A matches with response A, and then behavior 2, there's another response. So that's the system that teachers need, and I'm going to help train teachers in that system. And then my role will be, so if you've got student A who is disruptive 3 times in one class, there's a progressive step. So, and that is, once they get to that step, that's usually when I intervene. And I've got a lot of self-regulation techniques, and we use the term restorative practice. So, which involves a lot of conversations, and it's very specific training, like, what's going on. I try to get to the bottom of the behavior. And that's the piece that we haven't had for the 6 years I've been at that district. So I'm excited about doing that. And I've got a lot of experience with kind of de-escalating situations and preventing behaviors with certain kids. So I'll be, a big part of my job will be working with those kids to get them, regulated and teaching them coping skills. But another big portion is to work with teachers. Like, this is, because when a teacher, like, let's say a history teacher goes through school, college, they're learning how history. Very rare, they might take a class or 2 about behavior management, but it's not enough for them to know on the spot, like, oh, I remember back in freshman year of college, I took this class. So that's going to be a lot of my job, is training these teachers.
This isn't just for IEP students or like 504. This is for any student that's having behavior issues.
All the entire population. Yeah.
I mean, that's awesome that you guys are doing that.
Yeah, and it's definitely been needed. But it a lot, when you look at the data, it's not a large population of kids that are doing this. But it doesn't take a large population of kids to just completely dismantle a classroom and disrupt the learning environment. So, so good and bad, the system will address that small percentage of kids. It's like a 5%, maybe 10% or less, that are causing these issues. But
yeah, like you said, that one kid has a huge impact on that classroom day.
Yeah, it's all like in education, they always use that 20-80. So 20% of your, of your population is affecting 80%. And that's, you can't let that happen. Teachers need to teach because they're very good. We have very good teachers. But when you have that one kid in class, they can't get through the content that they needed to, which is not fair. But on the other end, that kid needs to be, we can't just get rid of them. That kid needs to be able to come up with these skills to be back into that classroom. And that's always the main goal, is to get them back. And we've got differences between minor infractions and major infractions. Like, if it's a major infraction, if a kid gets physical in class, they skip the steps and they go right to the consequence in the handbook. So, but it's a lot of restorative practice. I work a lot on that social emotional skills, social emotional learning, like self-awareness, responsible decision-making, coping skills, management, being self-reflective, which fits right into that emotional intelligence that you guys, one of your pillars in your 5 categories is that emotional intelligence, and that a lot of kids lack that. So giving them skills, for the child and the adult, because there are some teachers that don't have that.
I'd say a lot of people don't have that, because it's not something that you're really ever taught. Like, when I was growing up, we were never taught about emotional intelligence or how to cope and react to certain situations.
Yeah. Well, and it always falls on discipline too. I mean, discipline, it's at the top, and all these different areas lead to discipline, and emotional intelligence is one of them. To be able to be self-disciplined, you've got to be self-reflective. You've got to be able to look within yourself, like, hey, I need to work on this.
Right.
A lot of students,
and then you got to hold yourself accountable.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, you do. So
I'm interesting to see how this program works for you guys, because I feel like I'm a teacher as well. And we have students who are disruptive and are like making it so that we can't teach the class. It's just ignored.
Right.
Which doesn't solve the problem, because then it just continues every time you have that student.
Yep, it is. And another piece too, and we could go pretty in depth with this but kids, even in my 15 to 16 years of education, I have noticed a difference. And I'm sure you have too, Randy, with parenting.
Oh yeah.
So a lot of these kids that don't have that emotional intelligence and don't have coping skills and that self-management, as soon as you meet with the parents, you know why, because they don't have it either. So a big part of my job, and it has been for, even in special education, is working with the parents. Like, hey, this is what your kid struggles with. This is what you need to do to help them at home. This is what I can suggest. But it's been tough. Just the economy puts a lot of pressure on parents, and it kind of takes away a lot of that parenting time that we've had, in the past. But yeah, it's things are changing. Kids are, I don't know. There's a lot of reasons why. There's the technology piece, and there's that social media piece, and then just the pace of life for kids has increased dramatically. It's so fast. Like, it's everything is instant. You go on YouTube, and it's like they're getting instant gratification. So those kids who don't get that instant gratification in the classroom are the ones that just they don't know how to handle that. And that's usually where your behaviors stem from.
Yeah.
Go
ahead, Brian.
I was going to ask you a question, and this is something that is at the forefront of my household right now. Obviously, per data and stuff like that, divorces are at an all-time high. It's no secret. Divorces are through the roof. Do you see, or do you have data that shows that children that come from separated homes are more likely to have the inabilities to manage their emotions and cope than, say, the family that, has a well-to-do mother and father that are together? Is that a dumb question?
Yeah, no, not at all. That there's a lot of research showing that those households, but it depends on how that relationship is, because there's still,
when the two parents split, if they're working together, I'm sure it's a lot different.
Yeah, it depends on what kind of environment is created. So children need stability. They need attention. They need your parents to be present. Whether it's one or whether it's two, and they need to be what they call emotionally nourished. It makes it harder in a divorce situation to get all of those consistently. Especially if it's a negative, because I've got a lot of students who have gone through that divorce process where parents are just at each other's throats, and that has a huge impact on behaviors. Those are the kids that they may not necessarily be in the ADHD brain, but it is kind of an ADHD brain. And there's a guy, he's got a book. It's called Gabor Mate. He's a psychologist, child psychologist, and he talks about that development at an early age. So if parents are not creating that emotionally stable environment and it's just chaos, well, that has a huge impact on the future of that kid. And I'm really big on Jordan Peterson too. He's my go-to for all this, psychological and neuroscience. And he talks about that. The ages from, I think it's about 2 to 5 years old, is that crucial period of time to where you have to create a stable environment. They have to be emotionally nourished, and even physically. They got to have good food. They got to have stability. Parents have to be present. And there's a lot of things that impact that, and divorce situations are one of them. But I've also worked with kids who are in divorce situations, but parents are still good. They can still create that environment, and that's where the parents kind of step up and say, hey, we've got our differences, but this is for the kid. We've got to be there. We've got to be present. We've got to be a team still. So it can be done, but society has changed. I was reading, there was some I think Gabor Mate references in his book that, back in the 1930s, parents had almost 23 hours of free time with their family. But, and then within 20 years, it changed to like 17 now. So in the 1950s, the workload increased, and the economic stuff became an impact, became a lot more pressure on parents. So the time to be a parent just went from 23 hours in the 1930s to 17 hours in the 1950s to now it's barely any time at all. And the economy makes it hard for there to be, back in history, it was, the father was usually one out in the work field while the mother stayed home and created that stable environment. And it's very hard to do that nowadays with families. Everything's so, the economy puts so much pressure on you that both parents usually need to work. So it minimizes the amount of time that you have with your family to create the environment that's needed. So it makes it difficult, and that stems, and that a lot of times that results in more technology use. And I'm not a big tablet guy with my kids. There's definitely a time and a place for technology, but there's a lot of families I work with that when a kid comes home, they're on the tablet. Like, parents are busy, or a parent might be working second or third shift and they might not even be home.
Right. It's become a babysitter.
It is. It's too much screen time. So
it's crazy to me that there's kids that are like addicted to like computers and tablets and video games now at a young age. Like, we've had kids who were diagnosed with an addiction to these things.
Yep.
It's crazy.
Yeah. And it's, in North America, when you're talking about data from worldwide, North America is struggling the most with that. There's more economic pressure in this country. There's more technological advances, which is really cool. But it's overused. It's overused. And in the school system, we're having difficulties with kids because everything needs to be instant. So kids are easily bored. When you get on YouTube, and it's funny too, because you talk about attention span in kids in school, it's not there. So when you lose their attention, they get bored. That's when behaviors start. But I read something the other day where, like, even on YouTube or TikTok, the most popular like videos are shorts. They're like 1 minute or less. That's it. And those are the most popular most viewed.
That's interesting.
Because so kids are losing interest. They watch a short and then they move on to something else. And
they can't even watch a YouTube video.
I can attest to that. My oldest will ask, I'm only giving it to them in the car nowadays. I try not to let them have it when I get home from work because I want to spend quality time. I try not to let them have it if they're, having a disagreement. We'll both go your own ways and get on the phone. So we'll be in the car and he'll ask for me to put something on, and I'm here reliving years ago where, you want to watch Cars, the movie? No, he wants to watch the Cars short. And now he's on the YouTube thing, and the attention span is very, very concerning, because you used to be able to put him on the TV and he'd sit there and watch an entire movie. It's like he's losing the ability to maintain his focus for more than a minute or two at a time, and it's concerning.
It is. Well, and that's
with your girl, Randy,
with me, Randy,
or both of you. Do you see it yourselves?
Well, yeah. I mean, it's the exact same thing. And I try to keep my kids off of it as much as I can, but I mean, there's times where, I'm not home, and because my oldest is in 8th grade, and sometimes she'll watch the younger two for like an hour and a half. And that's what they end up doing when I'm not home, or if their mom's not home, that's what they're doing. They're going to go on their iPads, or they're going to play video games.
Yep. Well, and it's not to say like there's no way to avoid that, especially in today's world. You can't avoid the technology, and there's definitely a time and a place. Like tonight at my daughter's softball game, I'm gonna put a cartoon on for my son, and he's gonna watch it on my phone. If not, he's gonna be all over the place and running in between cars and running in the parking lot. So there's definitely a time and a place for that. But there's a line that is definitely being crossed, and I try to work with parents, and but it's difficult, especially with today's world. Like, I've got a lot of parents that work second shift and they work third shift, so they're not even home. They're not even home when the kids get home from school. So it makes it really tough.
I mean, all you could do is offer suggestions. They have to be the ones to take this stuff and implement it.
Yeah, they do. And that can be frustrating. Yep.
It's interesting that this is what we've started talking about, because when I first started teaching, and I teach PE, like I would ask kids, like, how many of you are involved in some type of sport? And I would say, this was probably 15 years ago, there would be one or two kids who didn't do anything. And now when I ask, there's like one or two kids that do play a sport. Mm-hmm. So it's changed drastically. And I know COVID had a lot to do with that, but I mean, we're a couple, 2 years removed from that now. And I'm not seeing participation numbers increase. The kids tell me, I'll be like, who here has ever played basketball? Oh, I play basketball on PS5. I'm like, well, no, that's not playing basketball. That's you going on a video game and doing it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's annoying because when we practice these skills, like, of course, you're not going to be good at something the first time you do it. And they'll take like a shot and they'll be like, oh, I suck. I don't want to do this anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah. And that comes back to that instant gratification. Like, when you're playing a video game, it's instant. When you're watching a video, that's instant. That's instant gratification. So the persistence through struggle, that grit, is a really difficult thing to teach in kids because they want it right now. Like it has to come now. So that's been a struggle. And there are definitely things you can do, especially with that behavioral approach. So yeah.
We'll have to do a follow-up podcast to see how that whole thing has worked out throughout the school year for you when you implement it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And I'm excited. And that's, so, it's been the first time in about 10 years where I'm at this point, and this is my first day of summer, where I'm actually excited. Like, man, I think I'm going to enjoy this new position. So
I'm not feeling that. So I'm going to enjoy.
No,
I'm going to enjoy my summer, but
I haven't felt that in a long time.
I'm happy for you that you're feeling that way.
It's interesting. You brought up the COVID that, I think it was about 2 years ago. That's definitely made a huge impact on behaviors as well. Because since then, I can't remember who. I think it was a hospital out of Canada that did a long study, and they interviewed parents. It was over 1,000 parents, and about 79% of parents who had their kids at home stated it was the worst experiences they've ever had.
At the parents, right?
They're saying parents,
right?
The parent, and that was frightening to me because me, I loved it. Like it was a lot of freedom. I hated teaching. The way this is how I taught. Like
same. It sucked.
But man, we had so much. Like I felt like our family got closer.
Well, yeah, you got to spend more time with them. Like you said, like our time as parents has decreased. Like we're doing so many other things that you don't get to spend quality time with your family as much as you used to.
It definitely shed light on the problem with parenting in this generation.
It seems like everybody wants to be friends with their kids and not like do the hard stuff.
Yep.
You got to do the hard stuff to be a parent. Like if you want your kid to be successful, it's going to be difficult. You're going to have to talk to them about difficult things. They're going to rebel because they're kids and that's what kids do. And you're going to have to make them toe the line. And it's going to be difficult.
What's that? Jordan Peterson has it's a chapter in one of his books. He said, don't let your children do things that make you dislike them. And I thought that was great. Like that's parenting.
Right.
If your parents are doing things that make you dislike them, that's on you. And that's just parents not taking ownership in their job. So
there's a lot of discipline involved in being a good parent. It takes work and effort. You have to put in the work to do it.
Yeah, you do. And it's again, I've talked about balance a lot, and parenting is a balance because you got those parents who they overdo, they're too strict, and the punitive punishment and corporal punishment and all that. Like a lot of parents go a little bit overboard. But then on the other end of the spectrum, you got parents who they're so relaxed and kids have freedom.
The free range parenting.
And that's not good. That's
not
good.
No, there's got to be balance, like you said.
Yeah.
All right, we talked about a lot of things, and I don't want to skip this portion because I know you have so much going on which it's insane to me. Brian and I were talking about it before. Like we wanted to dig in like on how you balance all this. And I think you've done a really good job explaining it, but you're also a business owner. You're an entrepreneur. You have more than one business. So why don't you talk to us about that a little bit?
So we currently have I own three businesses. One is the seal coating. I've owned that for this would be my 7th year. And then I have a parking lot painting. So it kind of goes hand in hand with seal coating. So we refinish the parking lot and then I put the parking lines on it. But the last couple of years I've separated that into a different LLC. So I've kind of branched out and started to build the painting business. And then this last year, my wife and I opened up our coffee. So it's a mobile coffee bar, and we go to different festivals around the state. So yeah, it's a lot. And again, that's the balance. Like I need to be able in one day, before I got on the podcast, I was, from about 8:30 to when this started, I was on the phone with customers, seal coating and getting estimates and getting jobs lined up. And then after the podcast, I'm doing the same thing with the coffee, because we've got a big festival coming up this weekend. So I've got to call those people and organize and get that all set up. So
what made you make the jump from, like, you're already teaching, you're coaching, you're competing, you're instructing, and then you're like, I want to take over this seal coating business? Like, what went into that?
There was a time, it would have been after my 3rd year of teaching. With the first 3 years of my teaching career were really bad. I worked with a really bad leadership, which was not good for a beginner teacher. So I had my mindset like I'm done. Like, this is it. Teaching is not for me. So I actually left that position, and it was an entire summer where I had no idea what I was going to do. Like, I did not want to go back into teaching, but I knew I had to, because we needed to pay the mortgage. So I had it was actually my old assistant coach from wrestling owned a seal coating business. So I contacted him. I'm like, hey, I need a summer job. We need some money. So I worked for him, and I continued doing that for 5 years. It got to the point, and I continued teaching. I left and went to a better district with better leadership. So I was a little bit more, I didn't want to quit teaching quite yet. So I worked, did all the grunt work, did the seal coating. But as I was working, it was about that 3rd year of seal coating, I'm like, man, I could do this. Like, I'm watching what he does, and I'm watching his interaction with customers, and, and he's still a good friend of mine. So he was kind of giving me some of that behind the scenes stuff and running the business. And I'm like, man, I could do this. So, and it got to the point where having a summer job just didn't quite justify. Like, I wasn't making enough money to justify having a summer job. So I stopped seal coating, and then a year after, he approached me and made me the offer, like, hey, I'm getting out of it. I'm retiring. Would you be interested in taking over the business? So I had a long discussion with the wife, and we were in the position. We actually sold our first home, which gave us a little bit of a nest egg. And we wanted to invest. So we were looking at different, and I actually met with some different investors and things, and didn't really feel good about it. So I decided to invest in me, because I knew my work ethic. I knew the business. So I ended up buying the business and taking it over.
That's awesome. I see Brian smiling there. I know he wants to say something about invest, because you made the comment, invest in yourself.
I don't need to. Back in the beginning, Dan, one of the first things that we talked about in our individual episodes, about each one of us, the last question that we were asking each other was, if you had one piece of advice, what would it be? And I said, this is the product. Invest in this first. Yep. So yes, I'm happy to hear absolutely. That, man. That makes me pumped. Good for you.
Yeah, and we went, and I met with, because through education, you've got guys coming in all the time. And Randy, you probably have this too. Is like, you can invest through education, but I just didn't feel like giving my money to someone and rely on them to make money for me. It's like, I don't know, because I knew what I was capable of, and I'm like, let's just let's just go. Let's just dive into it. And it's been good.
I mean, there's a lot that goes into that. I mean, talk about the emotions. That's I'm guessing you took a big chunk of change and you invested it into this company, and that's a
Yep.
risk. That's a big risk.
So yeah, when during the time we were trying to figure out what to invest in, we decided to buy the seal coating business. So I'm the type of person that just I just go. Like I make a decision. My wife is the cautious one, so it was a lot of I was selling it to her. And it just so happened that Steve Harvey had this book called Jump. So I read that, and it's in a nutshell, he talks about that. Like in order for you to be successful, you've got to take that risk. You've got to just do it. And I reference, I know in the questionnaire I talked about Stephen Pressfield, and he talks about the same thing. Like his book, Put Your Ass Where Your Heart Wants to Be. That's taking that risk of physically just doing it, just being there physically, taking that and making that commitment. So that's what we decided to do. So we took a good chunk of that, bought the seal coating business, and it was not pretty at first, because it was quite overwhelming. It was the first business I've ever owned. I was familiar with the process, like I could do the job well. But it was that business, and there was a lot of things where I was not aware of that went into it, like customer service and bookkeeping, and and making sure I'm following my profit margins, and I mean everything is really, it really forced me to become organized, which I was not that person. I still struggle with that, but no, I learned, the first year running that business was rough. There's a lot of trial and error. It was actually, so the very first job that I had of the very first year I owned the business, we were doing a driveway. And if you're not familiar with seal coat, it's like a tar, and it's very thick and it's messy. So we're doing this driveway, and we're starting up at the garage, and my friend who was helping me didn't know what he was doing, and it was my fault. I didn't teach him how to do it. So he has a 5-gallon bucket full of this tar, full of the sealer, and he's standing straight up, and he just dumps it. And as soon as it hits, it splatters and completely coats this garage. And that was like, that set the stage for the rest of it. Like, I thought I was done. Like, here I am excited about this business, and the first job just is complete disaster. There were a lot of, first year of owning a business, there's a lot of things like that. But, I've always been one to, I'm pretty good at problem solving and figuring that stuff out. So yeah, and six years later, it's, I've grown the business. I bought a pretty well established business, so I had the clientele, but I've grown it. Which I'm pretty proud of that.
So are you still running like the day-to-day stuff, or do you have a crew out there that's handling like the labor, and you're just doing like the bookkeeping and stuff and the appointments?
So kind of both. So the first 2 years I was doing everything. Like I had friends helping me part-time, but the last 3 years, 4 years, I've had a crew, pretty reliable crew. So they're doing most of the work. I'm on the job quite a bit. Just I don't know. That's just me, my personality. Like I need to be there. It's not like they're going to do something bad, but I need to. I don't know. I'm kind of obsessive, a little anal about how they do the work and the process they do. So I'm on the job quite a bit. Yeah, but hiring that crew allowed me to go out and do the sales, which really helped build the clientele, and I branched out. I was in one county. Now I'm in like 3 or 4 different counties where we service.
Well, say the name of the business.
Yeah, so give yourself a selfless plug, dude. We do it all the
time. Yeah. Southern Michigan Seal Coating. So we're based out of Jonesville. That's where I store all my equipment. That's where the building I'm at. But we're in Branch County, Jackson County, Lenawee County, Calhoun County. I've been to Ann Arbor area, which is a big area. You guys probably aren't familiar with that, but
I've never heard of it.
No.
I did.
No.
U of M. They have
Probably
a
have a
pretty
football
pretty
team.
decent football team out there.
It's not
No.
ringing a bell.
Any
No.
bells?
Yeah.
You know, the only football team I know of is Ohio State, and that's about it.
Yeah. But no, so I've been able to grow that business. And what my whole plan for that business, because I'm not, I'm passionate about business owning, and I'm passionate about being successful, not necessarily passionate about seal coating. And I know enough about it, and I love doing it. But what I wanted to use that business for is to invest in other things. So the profit we're doing, we're turning that profit, I'm using some of it back for the business, of course, but other parts of that profit go toward investing into other things. So I ended up buying, after the seal coating, I ended up buying the paint stripe, because I was subcontracting out, which I didn't, I needed to, just to get the seal coating under wraps. But then I got to the point where it's like, man, I'm losing money. Like, I'm giving a percentage of this job to the subcontractor. Like, why not just own the painting? So I did that. So I bought the machinery for that, and I bought that business. And that one is DC striping. So that I kind of separated that within the last couple of years.
To me, it seems like those things go hand in hand. Like, if you're going to seal coat the parking lot, like, you should paint the lines.
It needs to be painted. Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Like, you're not just going to be like, all right, well, I'll see you later. You got.
Yeah. And what I've done, because what I found was there's a really high need for like chain restaurants and chain grocery stores, where they're not always getting the seal coating done, but they want their lines repainted. So in my area, the closest company that was doing it was 50 miles away. And they were actually hiring these people to come and drive the distance. So that's where I got the idea, like, I'm just going to branch out and do separate, just painting jobs to, that way I can get into this market in this area.
I mean, it seems like a smart move.
Yeah. And I've been doing that the last couple of years. That's been good. But then, what the problem with seal coating and striping is, it's not real family oriented. Like, I can't take my kids to a seal coating job. It's, it's brutal work. And then to rewind, even before the seal coating, I always had an idea of this coffee business. And my wife used to work, her parents used to own a restaurant, a local restaurant, where she made coffee. So she was a barista for a number of years. And then I actually helped my father-in-law and their family. They went to a fair and they sold coffee, and it was insane. And then I found out what they made, and I'm like, this is a no-brainer. So what if we did not have a brick and mortar store, but just do coffee and just travel to fairs and festivals? And then I started looking into it, and nobody did that. So I'm like, we got to do it. Like, and that's me, is like, hey, there's a need, there's a market, it's profitable. We got to do it. We got to do it right now. So that was about 10 years ago when I had that initial idea. And then it just kind of came back because we wanted a more family friendly. My wife was not happy with the job she was at. So I'm like, this could be your thing. So yeah, so we made that jump and we made that decision. So part of the seal coating and striping profits went to purchasing that equipment and that trailer. And we've done about 2 or 3 months of festivals, and it's proving to be successful. So we're pretty excited about continuing that.
And you said, how long did it take you to prep that and get it ready before you were able to go out and hit all these fairs and festivals?
So we ended up having the trailer built in Ironton, Ohio. You guys know where that's at? Southern Ohio. It's right on the border of Kentucky. Like, literally, there's a river separating Ironton and I think it's like Ashland, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
So we went down there, picked up the trailer. That was about 1.5 years ago. So we got the trailer, it was all built, and then we went and we got the espresso machine, and we got the refrigeration system, and the blenders and all the stuff that you see in a coffee shop. We now have that condensed into a 7x12 trailer. So that took a lot of building. It took a lot of time just because we had so many other things going on. But yeah, we're up and running now and doing well. So my wife is the one, she's the barista, and her sister-in-law helps out as well. So I'm pretty much the guy that, brings the trailer to the event and starts up the generators, and then they tell me to get out of the way. So
great. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's been good.
Sippity Split, right?
Sippity Split. Yep. Yeah.
Who came up with the name
and everything? That credit goes to my wife.
That's a cool name,
Yeah.
Sippity Split. I like the name.
Yeah.
I don't know what name you would have came up with.
Oh, I had a lot of names that she shot down really quick. Yeah. Yeah. Some of them may have been inappropriate, but yeah.
Yeah, those are like the best ones to come up with, though, because you have fun coming up with that stuff.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
I just people think that like, oh, I'm just gonna be an entrepreneur because you get to work for yourself, but I don't think they realize like the amount of work and how hard it is to become an entrepreneur, like a successful entrepreneur.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. That's what you hit on. Is to be successful. Like anybody can start an LLC. Anybody can just go out and start a business, but it's a grind and it's daily. Like there's no, and again, you got to be able to balance life with business. And now that we have multiple ones, it's kind of an art. It's a balancing art.
Unfortunately, I think it's kind of become faddish today. A lot of people throw on their things. Oh, I'm an entrepreneur. Well, yeah, it's cool to say that, but like you say, they don't know what it really takes to make it survive, be profitable, and really dedicate yourself to it.
Yeah, and I've never been one to just. I always want to grow. Like we're doing this, and I'm already talking about. My wife is not at this point yet because it stresses her out. But I'm talking about adding. Like if we're successful with one trailer, why not get two of them and cover more festivals at once?
So is that the goal right now? Is it to grow Sippity Split, or is it to grow the seal coating, or is it to grow both? Is it to get another business?
No, right now the main focus on growth would be the coffee.
Okay.
That's and it's fun because we just did a festival where we take our kids, and they have fun. So seal coating is going to be, I'm going to continue to use seal coating as that kind of that investment money.
Funding.
Yeah. And that's, and it's good money, and it generates a good amount of money that we can put toward other things. And it's not to say down the road where, I'm not ready to sell any of the businesses yet, but, if I grow it big enough, that's kind of the ultimate goal, I guess, as a business owner, is to grow your business enough to where you can sell it for a profit. And we've got enough things going on where I could sell the seal coating and put my efforts to grow the other areas like the painting or the coffee. So.
Well, I know that Randy is an extremely avid coffee drinker.
I do like coffee.
Don't be surprised if Randy and I steal your idea of the coffee, trailer.
Yeah.
And start one here in Ohio.
You should.
We'll have some border wars. We'll get it out towards the west side of Ohio, and we'll go back and forth on better sales.
I've actually like talked about this with Holly before about doing like a mobile coffee truck because I thought it was a good idea, but I didn't make the jump like Dano did. I was scared and just thought that it was a crazy idea, where Dano took it, implemented it, and now it's a success.
Yeah, and it's and I've read a lot of. I love reading the 1% people, like the CEOs and that I'm really big on Tim Ferriss and Sam Harris and Jordan Peterson and Elon Musk and all those guys that are at those are the 1%ers, and they all talk about at some point in their life when they were struggling is that risk, but it's not just one day I wake up and it's like, I'm doing it. Like, I don't care. I'm leaving. I'm dropping everything I'm doing. It's got to be calculated. And there was a lot of research that went into the coffee, and I already knew the seal coating, but it was a lot of like calculated risk. The risk is when you get to the point and make that final decision. But before that, it's like, okay, what's the market like? What's my competition? Like, how much, what's the cost? What's the benefit? But yeah, it's that, but the hard part is that decision, is that flip. Like, okay, I think I'm ready, and let's just do it. And that's, I don't know.
So what you're saying is you didn't just wake up and like, I'm going to do a coffee trailer. You actually did the research and you.
Yeah. Well, and I'm not,
smarter.
And I'm still teaching. Like teaching is, as much as I have enjoyed it, that is the stability. Like, if I lose seal coating business, if that just tanks, and the coffee tanks and the painting tanks, I'm still a teacher. So I'm still generating an income. So I'm not worried about being able to pay the bills. People get in trouble. And there have been people like Stephen Pressfield is one of them. If you ever get a chance to read his books, The War of Art is I highly recommend that one. But he was one that he left. Like, he just up and left. He lived in a van. It was his van and his typewriter. And he was the one that wrote The Legend of Bagger Vance.
Okay.
And with who is that? That's Will. Is that Will?
You're referring to the actor?
The actors, yeah. Who was the actor in that movie? Legend of Bagger Vance. Will Smith, I think, was the caddy.
Yeah, he was the caddy. Who was the golfer?
Oh God.
Ben, isn't it Ben?
I want to say Matt Damon, but I don't know if it was.
That's who it is. I was going to say
is
Ben.
It Matt Damon?
Matt Damon.
Matt Damon.
Yeah.
But the story that he told while writing that, like, he was living out of his van with a typewriter, and he wrote that, and he struggled. So you've got people that do that just drop everything and leave. But you don't have to do that. In order to take risks, you don't have to jeopardize everything in your life. So have that stable job. That's what teaching has been for me, is that stability. That provides the insurance and all that. But if you have that, important. It is. And when you have that stability that has a constant generation of income, that opens up other areas to take more risks. And that, and that's, I don't know. That's a lot of times when I talk to my kids that are going into high school, like, look, you can't just play it safe. You gotta be able to research. You gotta be able to take risks. And that's what, and that's just advice that was coming from, all the CE and all the successful people around the world. That same thing. Like, there comes to a point where it's just, you just gotta do it. You gotta jump. Yeah.
I'm going to have to read this jump book.
Yeah, it's pretty good. Steve Harvey he's got an interesting stories.
I've heard.
I watched the thing on him, and it's impressive that at his age, the dude's up at 4 or whatever in the morning. He goes and works out, and then he's off to his first set doing, whatever show, and then Family Feud. And then the dude's on the move 100% of the time. And it's incredible that, at his age, I mean, he's not a spring chicken anymore. At his age, he just grinds day in and day out.
Yeah. 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 I don't know. That's what it takes, so if people want to, people like me and people like you guys that they're constantly looking for something to accomplish. Like, it's not about the seal. Like, I don't want to be a seal coating tycoon, but it is 100% about success. Like, I cannot own a business and not be successful. So that's the drive. That's the motivation.
I mean, that's solid advice.
Yeah.
I mean, we've been going for like 2 hours now, Dano.
Yeah, I know it.
This has been good so far. So we're going to get into our questions now, because we don't want to keep you too much longer. I know you have a bajillion things going on, and you've kind of already touched on this. And you've touched on every single skill and how you utilize it in your life, which is awesome. So out of the 5, which one would you say is the most important part of your life, and why?
Out of the 5, out of the
5 ideal skills. Yeah.
Ideal skills. It's got to be discipline. You know, that's what, at the end of a really tough day, that's what keeps you going. You know, you've got to, once your willpower is gone, because having the will to do something that runs out. You know, after a really tough day of school where I really don't feel like going to do estimates or calling customers or going to training, that's where the discipline kicks in. You know, and it's kind of a trickle effect. Like if you're intentional, and I'm real big on, like I write, I do a lot of journaling. This is something I picked up from Hellrod, I think was his name.
Yeah,
Miracle Morning.
Yep.
Yep. Tim Ferriss is a big one, you know, but it's a lot of writing. So each week is planned out, each week is intentional. But when all of that doesn't work, so if your intention, like I usually map out my entire week, like Monday, I got to do this, Tuesday, I got to do this. And when that all falls apart and unravels, that's, you've got to rely on discipline. Like that I think is the biggest thing. And that I believe is the hardest to sustain. Like it's harder to sustain that discipline when you don't want to do something, when something goes wrong. And, you know, a lot of times it's easy to throw your hands up and throw in the towel. But so yeah, discipline is, and I struggle with it, you know, and you guys may as well. Like there are a lot of days where it's just, God, that did not go well.
Right.
You know, and with coffee, we've been to 2 or 3 events where we lose money, you know, and that's, you gotta be able to keep that perseverance.
No, we always say it's not about the direct outcome, it's about the process.
Absolutely.
You got to enjoy the process.
And that's what I've learned with, you know, and I'm hoping to get to that point. And I guess now that I'm older, I realize that it's not about, and I'll use jiu-jitsu for an example, and mixed martial arts. Like it's always like, I'm always searching for that gold. I want the belt. I want the gold. I want that championship. But in the past, I probably about 5 years, I've taken a look at where I've came and all the, like that adventure that it's, you know, all the people that I've met along the way. So it's not about the gold medal. It's about, you know, the training and all the people I've met and the teammates that I've built and the people that I've surrounded myself with. So, you know, if I'm 70 years old and I still haven't accomplished that world championship, it's really not what it was all about. It was about that adventure. So.
Right. I mean, when it comes down to like the competition, yes, you want to win gold, but how many times are you going to tap out prior to that? Like in the training?
Oh, constantly. Right. Every day. Like every time I train.
You're not going to get better unless you open up and try things. And that takes discipline to do that.
Yep. Well, just the road and the journey, whether it's just business or entrepreneurship or running this pod. I mean, you guys are gonna struggle, which you guys are probably already struggling, like getting your feet off the ground. And
absolutely.
But in 10 years from now, when you look back at how you've grown and the people you've met and the people you get to talk to and the people that you've reached, like that's what it's all about.
Sure. Throughout all that, Dan, you know, you probably had your doubts and stuff. There were probably times where you wanted to say, you know what, I don't know if my heart is in this anymore. Did discipline have anything to do with keeping you going, or was it the loyalty to your family and wanting to support and better? You know, what was it?
You know, yeah, discipline. There are a lot of times where discipline is just, you know, you always got that voice in your head, and Stephen Pressfield calls it resistance. So it's almost like this force that as you're pursuing your dream, you're pursuing your goal, pursuing your art, as he describes it, you're going to have, whether it's a voice in your head or you're going to have people, sometimes family members, that are going to say, hey, why are you doing this? Like, isn't this time to, you know, you're not doing well and you're struggling. Like, isn't it time to kind of think of something else? So it's things like that. It's things that I've read, interviews that I've listened to that keep me going. Like I've read a lot about those people, the most successful people in all sorts of avenues in the world, that have those moments where it's resistance. And yeah, I guess it is discipline that it kind of shuts that voice out. And it is family. You got to surround yourself with people that do push you, that remind you, like, hey, yeah, you're going through a low point in your life, but look what you have accomplished before that. Like this is just a momentarily, a moment in this long period of life where, something goes wrong. But, you look at the big scheme of things, you got to just keep going. You got to keep trugging along.
Yeah, it's so important about who you surround yourself with. Like I think people take that for granted.
Yep.
Especially when it's like you who, and I'm not saying this is like coming off trying to be an ass about it, but like you said, like you don't take credit very well. You will take what happened. It'll be maybe a moment of celebration and then you move on to the next thing. Well, it's nice to have those cheerleaders in the background who are like, no, what you just did there is awesome. That's a huge accomplishment. Yeah. Make sure you're aware of that.
Yeah. And I always tell this to my kids, like, cause there's a lot of problems where, if a kid has one goal, but he's surrounding himself with people who are, you got bad habits, and even adults, like, I've had a lot of friends where I've had to cut ties because, they just don't do anything. They don't have the same passion. They're out partying, they're out drinking a lot. And I like to indulge once in a while. But it just, those things get in the way. So a lot of times you have to make that hard decision. Like, man, I can't, like, I can still be cordial, but I got to go a different direction because this guy over here that I'm trying to, emulate and I'm trying to become, like, that's who I got to follow. And it's not easy to do because, it's easy to be pulled by that resistance and those people that try to pull you in the wrong direction.
It's easier to go out and drink and have fun.
Oh, absolutely.
It's way easier.
And it's, I'm not saying that I don't, like, you should be able to do that once in a while and live it up and spend time with family and friends, but you got to constantly remind yourself, like, okay, Sunday morning, I got to get my ass out of bed and, cure this hangover so I can get this stuff done during the day. So yeah, it's important. You definitely can't do it on your own. You gotta have people to pull you.
Agreed.
We talked about it a lot. Not the last question, but the next question that I'm going to ask you is, you've talked about a lot of books, dude. You've mentioned more than I can count. The normal question is, what book and or podcast has given you drive or been the most impactful on you? So we talked a lot of books. Is there a particular podcast or, somebody that you follow that has impacted you to the point where you could pinpoint and say, like, this is the dude, or this is the woman, or this is the group? So
right now I follow Andrew Huberman a lot, the Huberman Lab, for my like jiu-jitsu and overall like physiology, and he's my go-to guy for that. But overall, that's, I've read a lot of Steven Pressfield books. He's probably my most read author. And he's got a lot of good stuff, and he touches on everything. Like he even wrote a book. One of my favorite books on his was it's called The Virtues of War. And it's the life and times of Alexander the Great. Those type of things, and I'm a history guy, so anytime I read stuff about Alexander the Great, or he also wrote a book on that the movie 300.
Yeah.
He wrote a book on that. The Gates of Fire was a good one. But that, those are the things I do when I hit a low point, when I have no motivation and my discipline is just kind of starting to teeter. I usually resort to those. A big Joe Rogan fan, like he's got a lot of people on there that I follow. I would say if there was one person where, if someone out there's looking for, like, what to do, like I have this passion, but I don't know where to take it or how to make that first step, I would definitely recommend Steven Pressfield.
Right on.
Yeah.
Randy, you want to end him with that last one, or you want to?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like you've given a lot of advice already, but if you could give one piece of advice to our listeners, what would it be?
Number one, you've got to follow your passion, and that's, again, I'm going to reference Steven Pressfield, like, and in his book, put your ass where your heart wants to be. He uses different examples. Like if you want to be a writer, you sit down in front of a keyboard and you write. If you want to be an artist, you put yourself in front of that easel and you just paint. If you want to be a dancer, you go to a studio, you put your physical self in that place, and that's got to be the first step. The other thing too is I'm big on writing things down. Like I've got a lot of notebooks. I'm kind of obsessed with buying notebooks all the time, and you got to write down your goals. Like that's the first thing. Like what do you want? It could be absolutely ridiculous. Like, you know, a third grader wants to be a, you know, astrophysicist, whatever, or the next president of the United States. You got to write it down.
What third graders do you have that want to be astrophysicists?
Not the ones I work with, unfortunately. Yeah.
I don't know any third grader that's ever just came, you know what? I want to be an astrophysicist.
They're out there somewhere.
They're out there somewhere.
Yeah.
Like, damn, that's I thought you were going to say like a professional ball player or something. You go straight to astrophysicist.
I bet when Elon Musk was in third grade, he was probably thinking of that.
Yeah, but he probably wasn't in third grade. Maybe he was third grade age, but he was probably like in 6th or 7th grade.
Yeah, that guy's he's an alien too, I think.
Astrophysicist.
No, you gotta be, and that, you know, that goes, you know, touches on your guys' is you guys mentioned is being intentional. Like have a dream. Number one, you gotta have a dream. But then, you know, how are you gonna get there? You can map it out by writing it down, you know, and once you write it down, it's like, okay, has anybody done this? You know, and then you start seeking out people that have done it before you, and, you know, start using their, you know, map. But you've got to, I don't know, you've got to sit down and have that drive, you know, and a lot of kids that are at that age, like middle school age, they don't have people that are, you know, telling them how to do this. So that's what's awesome about what you guys are doing. Like you're putting that out there, you know, and I think that's good. You know, having these podcasts and having social media, they're starting to put out better content like this instead of just, you know, and I don't know, kids these days want to be a lot of YouTubers, but
YouTube influencers,
YouTube, and you know, it's starting. I've noticed a trend that they're starting to be more positive things. Like even some of these YouTubers are coming out with like how-to programs, you know, and that's pretty cool. So you gotta number one, have a goal. You got to have a dream big, and then just start mapping it out, start writing it down. And if you can't figure it out, you got to start finding out people that have done it before, or finding out people that can lead you in the right direction.
I like what you said there. That's good.
I feel like that's what you guys are doing. So kudos to this.
Well, thank you. I mean, you can't just have a dream. That's like a lot of people just like, they have this dream, but then there's no plan to get there. And there has to be a plan. And I feel like a lot of people they just throw out these outlandish ideas. I mean, maybe not outlandish, but like these big dreams. And then you're like, all right, well, how are you going to get there? And they're like, oh, I have no idea. Like, I just have a dream.
Yeah. You know, it was about 5 years ago is when I started to really get into journaling. I bought a journal. It's called the Phoenix Journal, and it breaks down everything. Like you've got like a 5-year goal, and then they break it down to a year, and then they break it down to a 12-week, and then they start breaking it down into weekly and then daily. So that was a real help for me, just kind of mapping that out. Because it's hard.
Phoenix Journal.
Phoenix, Phoenix Journal.
I'm gonna check that
out. There's a lot of different ones out there that like will help you, you know, start to narrow down things like that. And the other thing too, which has really helped me is I don't know how long you guys want me to talk for, but I got time.
Keep going.
So there was a few years ago, I started reading about and it's been a while, so I'm gonna kind of butcher this summary, but there was the British cycling team they were like the laughing stock of the cycling team, of the cycling world, and they never had any champions at the Tour de France, and they were kind of laughing stock. So they ended up hiring a new coach. I think it was Dave Brainsford. I'd have to check on that, but he stepped in and he took a look at everything that went into cycling. So he broke cycling down into the tiniest pieces. Like he was looking at the shoes that they wear, the short, the uniform, the bike tires, the pedals, everything that made up cycling. And then he came up with an idea, and he called it the aggregation of, what was it called? I think I wrote it down somewhere. Aggregation of something gain. But what it was he wanted to improve 1% in each area of cycling. So he started with like the uniform that the British cyclers were wearing. He's like, how can we improve this? Let's just make a 1% improvement. And then he looked at the tires, and he looked at the bike seats, and then he looked at the weight of the bike, and the helmets they were wearing and everything. And once he started to break it down into these 1% areas, they started to slowly climb. And I think it was within 5 to 10 years, they were at the top of the cycling world. And the Japanese have a term called Kaizen, which is the same thing. Is you don't look at the big picture. You got to break down whatever you're pursuing. You break it down and dissect it into these teeny tiny parts, and then you try to increase it by 1% at a time. And that's it. And when you do that over time, you start to see like, wow, everything's improving, and I'm getting closer to my goal or accomplishing my goal. So a lot of time, people get in trouble because they're trying to do too much. They're trying to look at, I want a successful business, so I'm just jumping in. But instead of breaking it down, like what does it take? What everything that goes into this business, you got to break it down into teeny tiny parts. And that has helped me, and that kind of helps me not get so overwhelmed with everything that's going on. So
Dan, aside from breaking it down into the teeny tiny little parts, it sounds like there's one other thing that you didn't do. You didn't give yourself a timeline. You didn't put a stamp on it saying, if I'm not successful by this date, I'm done with this and I'm moving on. Did you ever do that?
Yeah, you can, I definitely have dates. Like, I usually plan out my week. Like, I need my Monday to go like this, and I need my Tuesday to go like this. In order for me to accomplish everything I want to accomplish by Friday, I've got to do this. So I do put deadlines, but you also need to be able to problem solve when that deadline doesn't happen. Like, because that happens all the time. Like, you can put something on paper and it looks really good, but there's a lot of things in life that get in the way of that, and a lot of problems that you need to do. So having that, having that plan B, when something goes wrong, you just got to have that. You got to have that mental fortitude and that perseverance to get through it. So, yeah, but no, I'm really big on mapping it out. You got to plan it. You got to write it down.
I agree. I do the same thing.
Yeah, it's good. It's useful.
It is. It is. It's a hell of a way to wrap it up.
Yeah.
I think you now hold the record for the longest piece of advice segment, but I think it's also been one of the best, brother.
Yeah. I figured if you guys got tired of me, you would have told me to shut up. So
no, everything you said was good. I mean, you've obviously had a lot of success in the past few years with the businesses and jiu-jitsu and just life in general. And I know just from knowing you, you've overcome a lot, and I'm proud to say that I'm friends with you, and I love where you're at right now, and I love to see where you're going. Man. So
yeah, back at you, man. Yeah, I'm super excited. When you started this, I'm like, they're just gonna be in a basement together, just shooting shit and telling jokes. But then now you guys are on Spotify, and you guys are gonna reach a lot of people, which is cool. And the other part too is, you guys are like taking on customers and helping individuals, and that's cool. There's not a lot of I think you guys definitely found a corner of that market where it's definitely going to project you forward. So
that's the goal.
Cool. Yeah.
Well, let us know where we can get you. Where can people find you? The seal coating business, the Sippity Split, the painting, everything you got going on.
So Sippity Split has a website, sipplysplit.com. And I post a lot of stuff. You can find me on Instagram, Facebook, just Dan Claus. I'm not on TikTok. I don't have any use for that. But no, the business, Southern Michigan Seal Coating. There's Facebook pages, and Sippity Split has a Facebook page. So yeah, you can find me in all those places.
Awesome.
Heck yeah.
Do you have any final thoughts that you want to throw out there?
Yeah, when can we do this again? I enjoyed it.
Oh, we're gonna do it again. I want to see how this whole behavior thing's going that you got going on.
So next time I may have to make a trip down there and join you guys in wherever you're at.
That'd be awesome.
Hey, we got a ruck coming up. If you want to make a trip.
Yeah.
Well, that's soon. That's like
soon.
August 6th, I believe.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah. Shoot me some dates.
Another selfless plug for us, Randy.
That's true. Good job, Brian. Well,
Yeah.
Dano, we want to thank you for coming on. It's been awesome. It's been a great, I don't know even how long we've been going now, 2.5 hours, 2 hours.
Yeah. Flew by.
Appreciate you doing this and giving up your time because I know you are super busy.
That's right. I enjoyed it, man. That was a fun time.
Awesome.
Thanks for having me.
Well, thank you.
Dan, I just wanted to say thank you as well. I'm really proud of you, dude. It's awesome to know you. I wish you and your family the best of luck, and keep doing what you're doing, man. You're killing it.
Hey, same to you guys. I appreciate it.
Hey everybody, if you liked what you heard today, please check us out on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter. And don't forget to head to Eventbrite and grab one of the 10 tickets available for our monthly Ideal Connect call. Then when you're ready to take the next step, message us on any of our social media pages to book a free coaching consultation call to see how we can help you start living your own ideal life. Thanks again for all of your love and support, and always remember, you have everything you need to achieve success. It's just a matter of believing.